Welcome to the Craig and Greg Show, presented by Maximize Leadership. Now, here are Craig Owens and Greg Harris.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Craig and Greg Show. I'm Craig. This is Greg. You know, in a lot of our episodes, we use some sports analogies because we like watching sports, we like playing sports, but regardless of what sport that you may or may not play, there is a phrase that I think that you've heard a lot that you probably resonates even if you don't play a sport, and that's keep your eye on the ball. When it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you're swinging a bat, you're not going to hit what you're not looking at. If you're trying to catch it, you're not going to catch what you're not looking at. But I think this is really true for so much of our life that we begin to get our eyes off on other things. And in your book, you wrote a great book back here. We'll tell you a little bit more about how to pick up a copy later, but I think all business owners should check this out. Even if you're not ready to sell or retire, you need to do the planning ahead. But one of the things that you've discovered, Greg, is that some people, once they get to that spot and they say, yeah, you know, I think I'm ready to retire, or I want to sell my business, I want to move on, that a lot of them take their eye off the ball. They're no longer looking at their business. So let's talk first about why is that a natural kind of tendency for people, why do they have to be aware of it so that they're staying engaged?
That's a good one. Yeah, the Business Baton really was written for business owners and leaders. They're going to have to success or exit some point. Moving on, something different, could be retirement, or it could be something else. It could be my kids are ready, or I've got an outside investor that's really wants to take it to the next level. There's a lot of reasons to hand the baton. But keeping the eye on the ball, there was one picture of a little tyke. I think he had a little tyke, a wiffle ball and bat, and a little T-ball stand, you know. And so the grandpa or the dad, not even in the picture, says, keep your eye on the ball. And this little shaver, he goes like this. This is the ball.
It literally puts his eye on there, yes.
And that's exactly my advice to business owners and leaders, because you have to take such determination to say, oh, squirrel. Oh,
right.
Beautiful weather. Oh, time to golf. Maybe take the boat out. Versus keep your foot on the pedal. Keep running your business. I believe humanity gets to that place like they've thought about it for a while, and they've finally got to that decision, and they're done.
Yeah.
And you can't be. And the reason I put this, I think it's chapter 7.
It is chapter 7.
Yeah.
Yes.
The problem that business owners and leaders have is the pace. And part of what will end up in our episode today is you need someone to help kind of quarterback that for you, because you still have to run your business.
Right.
You're not selling it because it's on fire. You're not selling it because it's doing poorly. You're selling it or transferring it, or maybe giving it to the kids, or whatever your terms are. You're doing that because you've thought about it, prayed about it, you're ready. But no one else but you can run the business like that.
Right.
And you do that until either you officially sign the documents to, merit to your kids, inherit to your kids, inherit or merit to managers in your company, some other combo, or sell it to a third party and get it all shiny and ready. You still got to keep your foot on the pedal. And I think that's what I've seen the most, unfortunately, Craig, is someone finally gets there and then they say, I made it.
Yeah.
And you can't coast, but you can't do 3 jobs either. That's kind of where a quarterback comes in.
That's true. Yeah. So you call yourself a navigator.
Navigator.
When you come in, because you're saying, okay, so I know where you want to go on this, and you don't need to keep your eyes way down here. You keep your eyes on the business and let me help navigate to get that there.
I'm going to quiz you. So I didn't write it down for this episode, but what's the verse where it says, "A lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path"?
Yeah, Psalm 119.
Psalms, yeah.
Yep.
So I don't like that one. I like the Bible, but that verse, well, half the verse I like. The other half I don't like, because God never gives me the light unto the path. He just gives me the lamp right to my feet. Just take a step, Greg, trust me. Where are we going?
Yeah. I'd like to see it all the way to the end.
And that's where I think I've learned, even the hard way, for business owners who maybe started the company, it's their baby.
Yep.
It's for sure their retirement. There's no 401k that matches their company value.
Yep.
But they're so worked up, and they gave everything they can. And I think, unfortunately, they're like, I got nothing left in the tank. And that's where myself and other teammates can come pick things up and make it less of a labor for the business owner and leader. But I think just planning is part of it, so there's no chaos. But sometimes someone gets a bad news from a doctor and they go, I'm done. I'm going to retire or sell. Well, hold on. We're not quite ready yet. And that's, one of the things that we like to do is let's get you ready.
Sure.
And your company.
Right. So. Well, in that chapter 7 of Business Baton, you have some bullet points here, a couple reasons why people have a tendency to take their eye off the ball. So let me just give you these bullet points.
Tee it up for me like that boy.
I'm going to tee it up. You put your eye right on there, okay? So first bullet point that you have, your to-do list doesn't jive with your priorities.
No.
So what happens there? What can people do to make sure that they get those jive in again?
I think part of it is maybe for some business owners and leaders is trusting someone to help you, right? Like a trusted advisor, a trusted friend. And so that's kind of the role that I like to play and our company likes to play, is that navigating. So, hey, Bill, we got to do this here in the next week. What do you think? What are you available? Versus them drive it. Because I think the to-do list, I'm not going to say it's perfunctory, but it's got to get the car washed, got to get the dog, go to the groomer, got to cut the grass, whatever. Those are to-do lists. And to get to the 30,000 feet on the succession process, how do you, succession planning, which we'll hit in a minute, I think that's really the point for the owner is you have to get back to that planning portion, not the to-do list. But there are a lot of owners that just roll their sleeves up and like to get their hands on the, on the machining or the truck or whatever it happens to be. But I do believe to-do list versus priorities. If in the end your goal is to really make this company available to people inside or people outside, you can't do both. You're going to have to let some of it go. But I think the to-do list for many owners it just can paralyze them, like their heads down.
Sure. So one of your other ones then is another bullet point you have is sidetracked by the busy work. So would that be part of the same thing in there?
So just like, Billy's going to be taking the week off. I'll run his route. No, you're the CEO. Hire a temp or plan for it. And I'm not saying that was the wrong thing to do, but don't get out of the seat to do a job that won't get you down the field to score.
Yep.
And particularly when they get to that place, Craig, where someone goes, I think it's time. I need to explore this. That's what we love. Like, let's explore what it would look like. What does it feel like to you? What would be your concern? What's a sacred cow in this journey with them as a navigator? It's pretty special. I do think planning is not always the strength of leaders and owners.
Right.
But succession and exiting planning handing the baton is critical for planning. Without it.
So little side note, call Greg earlier than you think so you can have that plan in place. Another third bullet point you have in chapter 7 is vagueness about what's important. Yeah. It's hard to keep your eye on the ball when you're not really sure what's important.
I played with a guy in college baseball, and he was a switch hitter, which was quite advantageous depending on the field and the weather and who was pitching. And we noticed probably our junior year, his batting average went down a little bit batting left-handed. I didn't think nothing of it. I just thought, every baseball, you go through a slump, no big deal. About 3-4 games before the season's over, he shows up with glasses. I'm like, you wear glasses? No, but I just couldn't see very well batting left-handed. I'm like, oh, it was cloudy. It was unfocused. And I think that's the warning for owners and leaders is stay focused on the game,
right?
Versus maybe getting caught up in the minutia.
Sure.
It's easy to do the minutia. You almost feel like a servant leader when you're, hey, I'll do anything. I'll push the broom. I'll throw the trash out. No big deal. And then you realize, hey, but my ultimate goal is to keep this company.
Right.
And hand the legacy to somebody that can take care of it, bring it to the next level.
Yep. Another bullet point in chapter 7 is, and this is a tough one, is avoiding difficult conversations. Yeah. that would definitely, I think for me, I know I need to have the conversation, but I haven't had the conversation. And it's really hard for me to keep my eye on the ball for the other thing because I'm distracted thinking about the conversation, and I'm spending more time thinking about avoiding the conversation than I am trying to get on with it.
Isn't a couple of times you're in your careers, you're like, oh, there's Mary. No, Mary is not happy with us right now. I'm going to go over here.
Right.
I'm going to pretend I'm getting coffee. I think those conversations, it's part of leadership. You just got to have the tough ones. You've got to have the tough ones. And I mean, if you're going to get that payroll, if you're going to get that title, if you're going to have that parking spot or whatever, you're going to have the tough ones. I think the tough ones, why a navigator can be a gift, is when there's a third party.
Yes.
You really do get to the factual piece of the
beyond
tension.
the emotions.
Yes. And so, for example, maybe you're talking to one of the kids of the owners, and they're very emotional. I want to be the next president. I want to whatever. And you're like, I don't know if your dad wants to do that, or he's not quite there yet, And I think that's the challenge for some of us, unfortunately, is we know it's going to take a little work. We did an episode recently on relationship health. That could apply to this chapter. You're going to have those conversations with your son who maybe wants the job, but probably shouldn't take it.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
And those are tough. I just finished a case of a very large company where the middle child decided not to become an owner with the oldest and youngest siblings. And that was a very good choice for them, just surprised us. But at the same time, why would you want them in a spot where it's not a good fit, or they're not comfortable, or if you don't feel safe or successful? But I think that's one of those scenarios an owner has to get to, is we're going to have some tough conversations. I'm not going to be able to give the company for free to a manager because they've been with me for 25 years. Right. Work something out, or maybe you do something at the end when you do sell to a third party versus internal.
Well, you use the analogy in the book about one thing that we are accustomed to all the time, like the grocery store. We just show up, go through the line, check out, and then you're done. You don't think about the groceries anymore. But that's not the case it's not like, I've decided I'm going to sell my business, check out, I can leave and not think about it anymore. Right. Yeah. There are conversations that still have to be had. There are priorities that need to be set. But you talk as well about the and I don't know how you want to address this, either on the positive side or the negative side, when the owner starts to disengage, when their eye isn't on the ball anymore. What does that do to the morale of the company, the valuation of the company? So how do you want, either positive or negative, what?
I think I've enjoyed so many conversations in contracts, agreements to help them go through this journey, because it does give them feedback. It gives them, this is amazing what you built.
Sure.
I can see we had a little dip in 2017. We're back up. What did you correct? I'd love to hear the story. And so at some point, they still want to talk about it, even though maybe, they're not going 100 miles an hour into their company. My job as a navigator is to encourage them to finish well, because you don't want to sell it and have the legacy become rusted. Right. Because 3 left because they didn't think that you want to stick around, or didn't think you handled it well, or you never talked to them about it, or you just avoided it. And then a new owner comes in, you're like, nah, I'm buying this one. This isn't the story I'm not believing in. I did believe it with him, and I think that's one of the places of a team, particularly a navigator, is let's keep the ball moving. So I had one of my clients actually said, hey, I think I'm getting a little disengagement with one of my key leaders. Would you mind just plugging in as the navigator? And I did, and it was correct. He wasn't feeling great, wasn't feeling involved. So I just said to the boss, I said, hey, here's a chance for you to be an amazing leader, not a boss. Maybe take him out for a coffee once a month and just tell him how things are going. Sure. Not his job, but as a company. And I think people know if they know where you're going, there's a little more confidence and trust. Right. But that's part of planning and communicating those hard things.
Well, and we talked before, we did I think a couple of years ago, we did an episode about the trend of people quiet quitting, where they're just doing the bare minimum to complete the job and get the paycheck. And I think that, and you talk about this a little bit in the chapter, that somebody that takes their eye off the ball, that's really kind of the signal that they're sending is like, hey, you know what? I've decided I'm selling, I'm retiring, I'm moving on. I'm already looking down here to, what I'm doing next. And everybody else on the team goes, well, then maybe we should start just doing the same thing.
I agree. You spoke on value, and so that's probably my biggest one. When I visit with a business owner, we kind of go through numbers. I give them an NDA. I don't want to discuss anything that we're going to discuss with anybody else. Not my job. If they hire me, then of course I got to get an NDA to other people so they don't talk about it. I think our challenge when a business owner comes to me and says, "Hey, I'd really like to talk about doing this," I often ask the psychological questions, not the financial.
Sure.
But you do dive into the financial. So one of the answers that I'll give you regarding why this is important for the business owner leader is we often think profit. And then you got to put in there taxes, right? So it's profitability and there's a tax liability. When I talk to a business owner, our goal is to build the value of the company so he or she gets the most out of it, or the value is so good that the legacy will go on even if we closed our eyes. So that's the goal, is to make it so valuable, running like a top versus profit. I think that's the one thing that is important. Got to make money.
Sure.
And money's not bad. But I think if that's the goal, then you're going to cut corners on a business that someone else is going to have to run, and that's not going to be good.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You had a statistic in here that you uncovered from Chamber of Commerce data that I thought was pretty interesting. So let me just read it. It says, data suggests that 50% of people follow a non-traditional retirement path, often partially retiring, and then more shocking, 30% of retirees later unretire.
Yeah.
Do you think that if they had kept their eye on the ball and maybe kind of closed out their tenure, their chapter there, maybe on a higher note, the company's at a higher valuation, they got a better payout, their employees were in a better spot, do you think that maybe they would have stayed retired, they would have stuck with the plan a little bit?
That's often the story.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think this is not in this chapter, so I won't go there too far, but I just appreciate, telling leaders and owners what to expect, and you can't do it alone. For me, most of the gap on the owner thinking he or she's ready is they want to be ready and they see something like, I really love that dark shirt that you have on. It's actually blue. I love the flap pockets. It's really good. So you farther you get into it, you know that person's ready, right?
Sure.
Like your outfit is spot on. In managers or family or an outside party, if the owner maybe used assumptions, kind of, that's good enough, or that looks good. I see she can do this or he can do this. And then they don't, you get it back. You don't have the juice to run it.
Right. So
not only did you hurry the process, why you mentioned 10 minutes ago, start early, just to have the conversation. So I wrote a business friend of mine, said, hey, I don't know what you want to do later on. I'm not even telling you to do anything. But I'd love to hear the story of how you got to this place, because I love working with you. Secondly, I'd also want to chat with you over a cup of coffee, how I can help you at least throw things out. And that's really what the navigation is because if they say, I got 15 more years, you're like, you're 65. Wow. Okay. But can you do this pace for 15 years? And so I'll help navigate with that leader and owner that they can do it, just got to be able to empower and give other things away. But I do think the value is very, very critical to keep an eye, and that's the priority versus the to-do.
Well, in order for the company to get to the spot where somebody can even think about retiring or selling and moving on, and that's their 401k, their retirement, there was a productivity involved there.
Yeah.
And you've got a large section in this chapter 7 where you talk about the importance of the ongoing productivity, even during this process, during this time. Hey, I think I'm going to retire. I think I might sell it. I think I might, will it, inherit it to my heirs. The productivity has to still stay there, even though you've come to that point. Talk a little bit about the importance of the productivity still driving this business that's been successful for years. Got to stay successful.
I'm not sure I know enough about the difference between a leader owner who is really productive and some who's maybe not as productive. I don't know why the productivity chip is intriguing me. It's kind of like grit. Like, oh, he's got a lot of grit. She got way more grit. How do we know that? You can't measure it. I think productivity is that same piece. This is where an owner comes to work early. They leave late. They lock up. I'm not saying every day, but generally speaking, that's a servant leader. They're willing to stay a really long time. Productivity, while you're there, isn't to-do lists. It's actually having time quiet. Like, hey, I'm going to go around and write notes to people that just went through a really tough quarter of the year, and they did a great job. And so you have time to do that. That's what a leader, an owner needs to do. And I think productivity is I can get a lot more done when I'm feeling good. I'm healthy, which episode before was about healthy relationships. Well, it starts with you. And I think that's about owners and leaders too. You have to be productive. I'm not going to go real negative, but I've actually met with owners who sold, didn't plug in again, and their health really crashed. I'll just stop there. It just doesn't work. And that's not how God made us.
Right. So they need to stay productive inside the company and productive after they go out.
Yes. Because if you don't have something on your calendar, are you going to dress up nice?
Right.
I'll just put sweatpants on.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, I haven't done diddly in 2 years, and then health issues. And I'm not saying you have to work to your last breath. That might not be the right balance, but I've seen it unfold, unfortunately, when someone just quits cold turkey and they did it right, whatever that
right.
And then they crash and burn, and it's like, no, that's not why you did this. Interesting stat for the folks that want to talk about retirement, which is not really the journey of the Navigator. I'll meet with a business owner. I have no clue what you want to do. I don't have an end result. Like, you have to throw this play in before you win the game. Right. But I like to get their emotions about it, the psychology of it. Someone asked me the other day, so my company's worth $8 million. What do you think? Did you wake up today different that you knew it was worth 8? Well, I kind of hoped it was. Yeah, no, but did you wake up different today because it's worth 8? No. All right, so let's do this. Let's hand the baton off well. If it's 8, it's 8. If it's 9, it's 9. If it's 7.5, it's 7.5. But I want it to be well. And I think that's where not coasting, being productive, you get a real handle as an owner how your company's doing. And it doesn't mean they don't call the shots, but they might not make every call.
Right.
And that's where a Navigator and the team that we assemble to fit them is the key.
But it's still staying productive, which is the key, because you're not losing the momentum or the valuation.
There's so much health issues regarding being productive. Certainly for a company, being profitable and growing value is productive. You're engaged.
Sure.
People love to follow a leader, associate with a leader, join a leader when they're engaged.
Well, speaking of productivity, I think we got a section marked in one of your, I think in this chapter 7. You want to share that section? While he's pulling this up, let me tell you something that's kind of cool too. You heard Greg mention earlier in the NDA, not disclosing information, but in the Business Baton, if any of you ever watched some of the Looney Tunes cartoons, you know that Wile E. Coyote was a big fan of the Acme company, and he was always ordering stuff from there. And so there are real business examples in the Business Baton book, but all of them are the Acme company. So when you read that, you're going to see everything from production companies, factories, to agricultural concerns, to just small mom and pop businesses that kind of grew into something big. All these different varieties, probably going to find an example that's very similar to your kind of business as well. So you're going to see those in every one of these chapters. And you're also going to meet a leader in the M&A field and the business field in every one of these chapters as well, and get to know them a little bit.
It was a very cathartic experience to interview business advisors in different fields that help business owners figure out how to pass the baton. The case studies are real. I just had to change them a little bit, just to protect the innocent. But just about productivity real quick. So it provides an opportunity to increase output without more inputs. Productivity, like you're being resourceful, increases profitability, enhances competitiveness. So I don't really like stopping working out and then having to start again. It's like this hill was a lot smaller before.
Right.
This is really hard to climb. So you stay on your edge, you stay sharp. Yep. And I think that's been my coaching for business owners. And it's kind of what I like doing, is the coaching the business owners through this. We call it navigating, but I've seen that, unfortunately, too much, where they, maybe take their eye off the ball and they lose their competitiveness. They're just pooped. Well, we started too late then.
Right.
A couple more: improves work-life balance, which is very critical. So, when a prospect client of mine, we haven't done anything with their business yet, but his joke is, I want to live to retire. And I said, well, what does that mean? If I go home, I better have something to do, right? And so it was almost like the threat of, honey, I don't want you home this much.
Right.
The last one drives innovation and growth. And I think that's the part for me that I love about productivity, is it just keeps you sharp. And if I can help the business owner as a navigator, all right, next week we're going to meet with so-and-so, keep killing at what you're doing. I love your shipment went out to Indianapolis. Amazing. That was a great purchase or a great sale or a great new client, whatever you're talking to. And they're like, all right, but what else we got to do? And so I kind of keep a second agenda with the business owner while they continue to focus on being productive with their business.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let me read. This is how this chapter concludes. Keep running it, keep growing it, reinvesting in it, and all the while planning your sale, your transition, and your exit. And that's what you're going to...
I wrote that?
You did. It's pretty profound. Hey, check out Business Baton at maximizeleadership.com. You can read a little bit more there. You can find the book on Amazon as well if you want to go there. We would love some feedback from you. If you want to either leave a comment here on this video or on X, you could reach out to us at Maximize Podcast. Tell us a little bit about topics that you'd like us to cover, things that you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to get that input. We're here to resource you to be able to help you soar. And as I mentioned earlier, let me just repeat it again. If you're a business owner, you are going to do yourself a huge favor if you get with Greg, get with a business navigator much earlier than what you're thinking. You might say, boy, I can't even imagine coming close to retirement. Start the process now. It's going to help you so much in the long run, because then when you finally get to that spot when you're ready to move on, you won't have all of the other details to concern yourself with. You'll be able to make a more seamless transition as you move on. So you can also get in touch with Greg about any business concerns that you have as well at maximizeleadership.com. Find the form on there, fill that out, and Greg will get back in touch with you. We're here to resource you, so stay in touch with us. Subscribe on YouTube and click the bell if you haven't already, so that way you're notified whenever we share more content with you.
Get in touch with Craig and Greg through Twitter at Maximize Podcast or at MaximizeLeadership.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of The Craig and Greg Show.